Hotel manager dragged shy waitress to bathroom. Unaware Millionaire CEO was standing nearby. The ballroom was filled with champagne, diamonds, and people who'd never worked a day in their lives. Lila Dawson moved between them like a ghost, carrying trays of drinks she could never afford to taste. 23 years old, orphaned at 16, raising a younger brother on waitress tips and prayers. She'd learned to be invisible. It was safer that way, especially when Tom Riley was watching. Her manager, 40-something, married, and convinced his position gave him the right to corner her in supply closets, to brush against her in hallways, to whisper things that made her skin crawl. She'd reported him once. No one believed her, so she stayed quiet, kept her head down, survived, until the wine glass slipped, until Tom's hand locked around her wrist like a vice, his breath hot with rage as he dragged her past elegant guests who looked away, until he shoved her against the bathroom wall, his voice low and threatening. "You just cost me my bonus, you stupid little—" "Let her go." The voice cut through the air like ice. Tom froze. Lila's eyes went wide. Because standing in the doorway, perfectly still but radiating danger, was Evan Callahan, billionaire CEO, guest of honor, and the most powerful man in the room. Tom's face went pale. "Mr. Callahan, this is just a staff issue. This is assault, and you have 60 seconds to get out of my sight before I have you arrested." What happened next didn't just save Lila's job, it changed her entire life. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you're new here, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share powerful stories of love, justice, and second chances every single week. Now, let's get into it. 6 hours earlier, Lila Dawson's alarm had gone off at 4:30 a.m. Not because she wanted to wake up that early, but because survival demanded it. She lay in the small bedroom she shared with her 14-year-old brother Jason, staring at the ceiling of their cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the cheapest part of town. The rent was due in 3 days. She was $240 short. Again. Lila quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Jason. He had school in a few hours, and he needed every minute of sleep he could get, especially after staying up late finishing homework by the light of his phone because their electricity had been temporarily shut off last month. She showered quickly in lukewarm water. The hot water heater had been broken for weeks, and their landlord kept promising to fix it, and dressed in the simple black dress and white apron that was her uniform at the Rosemont Grand Hotel, the most prestigious hotel in the city, where women wore diamonds that cost more than Lila would make in 5 years, where men tipped more on a single drink than she spent on groceries in a week, where she was invisible unless she made a mistake. Lila grabbed her bag, left a note for Jason reminding him to eat the leftover pasta in the fridge, and headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. 2 buses, and 45 minutes later, she arrived at the hotel's staff entrance. She clocked in at 6:02 a.m., started her shift preparing the breakfast service. By 7:30, she was serving coffee to early-rising guests in the hotel restaurant. By 10 seconds, she was clearing tables and resetting for lunch. By 2 garg, she had exactly 30 minutes to scarf down whatever leftovers the kitchen staff would share, change into her evening uniform, and prepare for the real moneymaker, the corporate events. Tonight was special. The Callahan Group's annual investor gala, 300 guests, 5-course dinner, open bar, which meant good tips if she was lucky, and the constant unwanted attention of Tom Riley if she wasn't. Tom had been her manager for 8 months. At first he'd seemed professional, even kind. He'd praised her work ethic, told her she had potential, hinted at possible promotions. Then the comments started. "You should wear your hair down more often. It's prettier that way. That uniform looks good on you, really shows off your figure. You know, if you were a little friendlier with me, I could make sure you get the best shifts." Lila had tried to laugh it off, tried to stay professional. But Tom didn't take hints. The comments became touches, a hand on her lower back that lingered too long, fingers brushing her arm when he walked past, standing too close when he gave her instructions, his breath on her neck. 3 months ago, he'd cornered her in the supply closet, pressed his body against hers, tried to kiss her. She'd shoved him away, her heart pounding with terror and rage. "Mr. Riley, please don't be like that, Lila. I'm just being friendly. Unless you don't appreciate everything I do for you." The threat was clear. But Lila had reported it anyway, filled out the formal complaint with HR, detailed every incident, every inappropriate comment, every unwanted touch. The HR director, a woman in her 50s who'd worked at the hotel for 20 years, had listened with a sympathetic expression. Then she'd explained very carefully that Tom was a valued member of management, that he'd never had complaints before, that perhaps Lila had misinterpreted his friendly nature, that making false accusations could be grounds for termination. Lila had left that office shaking with humiliation and fury. But what could she do? She needed this job. Jason needed her to have this job. The rent, the utilities, the food, his school supplies, it all depended on her staying employed. So she'd swallowed her anger, avoided Tom as much as possible, and learned to make herself even smaller, even more invisible. At 5 p.m., the ballroom doors opened. The Callahan Group Gala was unlike anything Lila had ever worked. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Tables were draped in cream silk, centerpieces bursting with white roses and orchids. A string quartet played softly in the corner, and the guests, CEOs, investors, socialites, arrived in gowns and tuxedos that probably cost more than Lila's annual salary. She took her position near the bar, tray in hand, ready to circulate with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Tom appeared beside her, his cologne overwhelming. "Big night tonight, Lila. Lots of important people. Don't embarrass me." She nodded, not meeting his eyes. "And you look nice. That uniform really flatters you." His hand brushed her waist. Lila stepped away, her skin crawling. "I should get to work." "Of course, but remember, I'll be watching. Make sure you're on your best behavior." The way he said it made her stomach turn. Across the ballroom, Evan Callahan stood with a glass of scotch, surveying the room with practiced disinterest. He hated these events, the forced small talk, the performative networking, the endless parade of people who wanted something from him. At 36, Evan had built Callahan Group from nothing. Started with a single property, a rundown apartment building he'd bought with money saved from 3 jobs and a small business loan. Renovated it himself, nights and weekends, while working a day job in corporate real estate. Sold it for double what he'd paid. Bought 2 more, then 5, then 50. 20 years later, Callahan Group owned hotels, office buildings, and residential properties in 15 cities. Evan's personal net worth was estimated at $2.3 billion, and he was profoundly, achingly lonely. Money bought a lot of things, but it didn't buy genuine connection. It didn't buy people who cared about you rather than what you could do for them. It didn't buy the family he'd lost. Evan's mother had died 5 years ago. Cancer. She'd fought it as hard as she'd fought everything else in her life, including his father. Evan's father had been a drunk and a bully. Not physically abusive, not always, but cruel in the ways that left scars you couldn't see, belittling his wife, controlling her money, her friends, her choices, making her believe she was worthless without him. Evan had watched it happen, helpless as a child, furious as a teenager, and when he'd finally had enough money and power to intervene, to get his mother out, she'd refused. "He's my husband," she'd said quietly. "For better or worse." "This is worse, Mum. This is abuse." "I made my choice, Evan. You focus on your life." She'd died, still married to the man who'd spent 30 years destroying her spirit, and Evan had made himself a promise at her funeral. When he had power, real power, he would use it to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. He would never stand by and watch someone suffer when he had the means to intervene. He would be the person he'd wished existed when he was a helpless kid watching his mother shrink. Now, standing in this ballroom full of wealth and privilege, Evan's eyes drifted across the crowd and landed on a waitress. She was young, mid-20s maybe, dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, simple uniform, moving through the crowd with careful precision, like she was trying very hard not to be noticed. Something about her caught his attention. The way she flinched when a guest raised their voice. The way she apologized too much, even when someone else bumped into her. The way her eyes constantly tracked a middle-aged man in a manager's uniform who seemed to be watching her. Evan recognized that body language, the hypervigilance, the fear masked as politeness, the desperate attempt to stay small and safe. He'd seen it in his mother, and it made something cold and furious settle in his chest. Lila was refilling champagne glasses at a table near the windows when it happened. An older woman, dripping in diamonds, clearly several drinks in, gestured wildly while telling a story. Her hand caught the edge of Lila's tray. The tray tipped. Champagne glasses crashed to the floor. Red wine splashed across the white tablecloth, drops spattering onto the woman's dress. The conversation stopped. Heads turned. Lila's heart plummeted into her stomach. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The woman stared at her dress in horror. "This is Valentino. Do you have any idea how much this costs? I'll get club soda. I can clean it. You clumsy little—" Before Lila could respond, a hand clamped down on her upper arm, hard, bruising. Tom's face was inches from hers, his expression pleasant for the guests but his grip painful. "Terribly sorry, ma'am. I'll handle this immediately." His fingers dug into her arm as he steered her away from the table. Lila's pulse hammered in her ears. "Tom, it was an accident. She hit my tray—" "Shut up," he hissed under his breath, smiling at guests as they passed. "Just shut up and move." He pulled her through the service door, away from the elegant ballroom, and into the harsh fluorescent lighting of the staff hallway. Lila's eyes stung with tears. "Tom, please, I can fix it." "Fix it? You just humiliated me in front of the most important guests of the year." His voice was rising now, the friendly mask slipping. "Do you have any idea what that woman's husband does? He's on the hotel's board of directors." "I'm sorry." "You're always sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it, Lila." He was backing her down the hallway now, toward the staff bathrooms, away from witnesses, away from help. Lila's heart was racing, adrenaline and fear making her hands shake. "Tom, I'll pay for the dry cleaning. With what? You're broke. You can barely afford to live." He shoved her against the wall beside the bathroom door. Lila's back hit the hard surface, knocking the breath from her lungs. Tom's face was inches from hers, his breath hot and sour. "You just cost me my quarterly bonus. Do you understand that? I was up for a promotion and now I look like I can't even manage my own staff. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk to me about fair?" His hand slammed against the wall beside her head, making her flinch. "I've been nothing but nice to you, given you the best shifts, looked the other way when you screwed up. And this is how you repay me?" Tears were streaming down Lila's face now. "I didn't mean to." "You never mean to. You're just useless. A stupid little girl who can't do anything right." His other hand gripped her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Maybe if you spent less time screwing up and more time being grateful for what I do for you." "Let her go." The voice was quiet, calm, but it cut through Tom's rage like a blade through silk. Tom froze, his hand still on Lila's face, his body still pinning her against the wall. Slowly, he turned. Evan Callahan stood in the hallway entrance, not shouting, not rushing forward, just standing there with perfect stillness and absolute authority. His grey eyes were ice cold, his expression was carved from stone, and every line of his body radiated controlled fury. Tom's face went white, then red. His hand dropped from Lila's face as he stepped back, forcing a smile. "Mr. Callahan, I apologize for the disturbance. Just handling a staff issue." "I saw what you were doing." Tom's smile faltered. "Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding." Evan's voice was perfectly level, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I saw you grab her. I heard you berating her. And I saw you put your hands on her without her consent." Tom laughed nervously. "Mr. Callahan, with all due respect, she's my employee. I was disciplining her for a mistake. By assaulting her." The word hung in the air. Assault. Tom's face flushed darker. That's a serious accusation. It's an accurate description. Evan took a step closer. You grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises. You backed her into a corner. You put your hand on her face in a way that was clearly unwanted and threatening. You were abusing your position of power to intimidate and harm someone who works for you. Evan's eyes shifted to Lila, still pressed against the wall, trembling. His expression softened immediately. Are you hurt? Lila couldn't speak, could barely breathe. This was Evan Callahan, the man whose company owned half the city, the guest of honor at tonight's gala, and he was asking if she was hurt. I'm okay, she managed. No, you're not, Evan said gently, but you will be. He turned back to Tom, and the ice returned. You have two options: resign now, effective immediately, with a neutral reference, or I make a phone call to the hotel's ownership group and ensure you're not only fired but blacklisted from every hospitality position in this city. Tom's mouth opened and closed. You can't do that. You don't even work here. I don't need to work here. I own 40% of the hotel's parent company. Tom's face went gray. I've been meaning to take a more active role in operations. Start with management reviews. Ensure we're maintaining appropriate workplace standards. Evan pulled out his phone. So what's it going to be? Quiet resignation or very public termination? Tom looked between Evan and Lila, his expression twisted with rage and humiliation. This is because of her. Tom's voice was venomous now, all pretense of professionalism gone. He pointed at Lila with shaking hands. You're going to ruin my career over some nobody waitress? She's nothing. A broke little girl who can barely afford rent, who only has this job because I felt sorry for her. Stop talking. Evan's voice was still quiet, but something in his tone made Tom's mouth snap shut. You have 10 seconds to make your choice. Then I start making calls. Tom's jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists. For a terrifying moment, Lila thought he might actually swing at Evan, but then his shoulders sagged. Fine, he spat. I resign. Happy? Thrilled, Evan said coldly. Now get your belongings and leave the property. Security will escort you. You're going to regret this, Tom said, his voice low and threatening as he looked at Lila. Both of you. I know people. I have connections. And when word gets out that she's sleeping with rich men to get ahead... Evan's expression turned glacial. Finish that sentence, and I will personally ensure you face criminal charges for assault, sexual harassment, and defamation. My legal team is very, very good at what they do, and unlike you, I have the resources to follow through on every threat I make. He stepped closer to Tom. So I suggest you walk away right now, keep your mouth shut, and count yourself lucky that I'm giving you the option to resign instead of having you arrested. Tom's face was purple with rage. He shot one last hateful look at Lila. This isn't over. Yes, Evan said firmly, it is. And if you come near her again, if you even speak her name, I will destroy you. Professionally, financially, personally. Do you understand me? Tom didn't answer, just turned and stormed down the hallway, his footsteps echoing off the walls. The silence he left behind was deafening. Lila stood frozen against the wall, her mind unable to process what had just happened. Tom was gone. Her abuser, her tormentor, the man who'd made the last 8 months a living hell, gone. Because this stranger had intervened, this powerful, impossibly wealthy stranger who had absolutely no reason to care about her. Evan turned back to her, and his expression transformed completely. The cold fury melted into something gentle, concerned. Are you all right? Lila tried to speak, but all that came out was a choked sob. The adrenaline that had been holding her together suddenly gave way. Her knees buckled. Evan moved quickly, catching her before she hit the floor. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. I'm sorry, Lila gasped between sobs. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cause a scene. Stop apologizing. You did nothing wrong. Evan helped her to a chair in the hallway, crouching down so they were eye level. Nothing that happened tonight was your fault. Not the spilled wine, not Tom's behavior, none of it. But I ruined your event. You didn't ruin anything, Tom did. And now he's gone. Lila looked up at him through tears. Really looked at him for the first time. Evan Callahan was younger than she'd expected from the business magazines. Mid-30s maybe. Dark hair starting to grey at the temples. Sharp features that could look intimidating but were currently softened with genuine concern. And eyes that looked at her like she mattered, like she was a person, not just a servant. "Why did you help me?" she whispered. Evan was quiet for a moment. "Because I know what it's like to feel powerless, to watch someone you care about suffer and not be able to stop it." His voice carried old pain. "My mother spent 30 years married to a man who controlled and belittled her, made her believe she was worthless. And I was too young, too powerless to get her out." Lila's breath caught. "When I finally had the resources to help, she refused to leave him, said she'd made her choice." Evan's jaw tightened. "She died 5 years ago, still believing she deserved the way he treated her. And I swore at her funeral that I would never stand by and watch someone suffer when I had the power to intervene." He met Lila's eyes. "So when I saw what Tom was doing to you, I didn't hesitate, because you deserve better than to be harassed and assaulted at your job, and he deserves to face consequences." Lila wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Evan stood. "But I do need to know, are you hurt? Did he injure you?" Lila touched her arm where Tom had grabbed her. It was already starting to bruise. "I'm okay. He's done worse before." Evan's expression darkened. Before? Lila hadn't meant to say that, but now it was out there. This wasn't the first time. She shook her head miserably. "How long has this been going on?" 8 months, since he became my manager." "And you reported it?" "Once, 3 months ago. HR said there was no evidence, and if I kept making false accusations, I'd be fired." Evan pulled out his phone. "What's the name of the HR director?" "Mr. Callahan, please don't. I can't lose this job." "You're not going to lose your job," Evan said firmly. "But the person who ignored your complaint is." He was already typing. "I'm documenting everything. Tom's harassment, HR's failure to protect you, the assault I witnessed tonight. This is going on record. But what if they fire me anyway? What if I'm blacklisted? I have my brother to take care of. I can't." Lila's voice broke. Evan knelt down again, his voice gentle. "Listen to me carefully. You're not getting fired. You're not getting blacklisted. And you're not going to face any retaliation. I'm going to make sure of that." "How?" "Because I own 40% of this hotel's parent company, and as of tomorrow I'm going to own 51%, which means I'll have controlling interest." Lila stared at him. "You're going to buy a hotel because of me?" "I'm going to buy a hotel because it clearly has serious management problems that need to be addressed. You're just the catalyst that made me pay attention." He stood again. "But right now, I need to get you home safely. Do you have a way to get there?" "I take the bus. 2 transfers." Evan shook his head. "Not tonight. My driver will take you." "I can't accept that. It's not negotiable. Tom made threats. I'm not letting you travel alone until I know you're safe." Before Lila could protest further, Evan was on his phone. "Gerald, I need you to bring the car around to the staff entrance. You'll be taking Ms. Dawson home." "Yes, now. Thank you." He ended the call and looked at Lila. "Do you need to get your things from your locker?" Lila nodded numbly. "I'll walk with you." "I'll walk." "How, you don't have to. Your event can wait. Right now, making sure you're safe is more important." If you're feeling this story, please hit that like button. It really helps us share more stories about standing up for what's right. They walked through the service corridors to the staff locker room. Other employees stared as they passed, the billionaire CEO escorting a waitress through the back hallways. Lila could already hear the gossip starting, but Evan seemed completely unbothered. At her locker, Lila grabbed her bag and coat with shaking hands. "Do you have someone at home?" Evan asked. "Someone who can stay with you tonight?" "My brother, Jason. He's 14. "Is there anyone else? A friend, a relative?" Lila shook her head. "It's just us. Our parents died 7 years ago." Understanding flickered across Evan's face. So you've been taking care of him alone since you were 16? 17, but yes. That's a lot of responsibility. Lila managed a small smile. He's worth it. They walked to the staff entrance where a sleek black car was waiting. An older man in a driver's uniform stood beside the open door. Ms. Dawson, this is Gerald. He'll make sure you get home safely. Gerald nodded respectfully. Good evening, miss. Lila turned to Evan, still struggling to process everything. Thank you for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't owe me anything, Evan interrupted gently, but I do need you to do something for me. Anything. Don't come to work tomorrow. Take the day. Rest. Process what happened. But I need the hours. You'll be paid for the full shift. I'll make sure of it. Lila's eyes filled with tears again. Why are you being so kind to me? Evan smiled sadly. Because someone should have been kind to my mother, and maybe if they had, she'd still be here. He stepped back. Gerald has my number. If Tom contacts you, if you feel unsafe, if you need anything, call immediately. Understood? Lila nodded. Good. Now go home. Hug your brother, and try to get some sleep. Lila climbed into the car, still feeling like she was in a dream. As Gerald pulled away from the curb, she looked back. Evan stood under the streetlight, watching until the car turned the corner, making sure she was safe. This man, this impossibly powerful, wealthy man, had defended her, protected her, seen her when she'd spent months making herself invisible, and Lila had no idea that this was just the beginning. The car ride home was surreal. Lila sat in the back of the luxury sedan, sinking into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire apartment's furniture. Gerald drove smoothly through the city, the tinted windows making her feel like she was in a different world. First time in one of Mr. Callahan's cars? Gerald asked kindly. Yes, first time in any car like this. He's a good man, Gerald said. Known him for 8 years now. Never seen him treat anyone poorly. Always tips well, always says please and thank you. How did you come to work for him? I was a taxi driver, had a heart attack, couldn't work for months, lost everything, my cab license, my apartment, nearly lost my family. Gerald glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Mr. Callahan was one of my regular fares. When he found out what happened, he paid my medical bills and offered me a job, said every man deserves a second chance. That sounds like him, Lila said softly. He has a gift for seeing people, really seeing them. Not many wealthy folks have that. They pulled up to Lila's apartment building, a rundown complex in a neighborhood that gentrification had forgotten. Gerald didn't comment on the graffiti or the broken security gate, just got out and opened her door like she was royalty. You take care now, miss. And remember, you've got Mr. Callahan's number. Use it if you need to. Thank you, Gerald. Lila climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment. The elevator had been broken for months. She unlocked the door to find Jason on the couch, doing homework by lamplight. He looked up, his 14-year-old face breaking into a smile. Hey, you're home early, everything okay? Lila dropped her bag and collapsed onto the couch beside him. Jason, something happened tonight. His smile faded. What? Are you hurt? Did someone... No, I'm okay, but Tom got fired. Jason's eyes widened. Tom was the manager Lila had told him about, the one who made her uncomfortable. She'd downplayed it, not wanting to worry him, but Jason was smart enough to read between the lines. What happened? Lila told him everything. The spilled wine, Tom dragging her into the hallway, the confrontation, and Evan Callahan's intervention. By the time she finished, Jason was staring at her in disbelief. Wait, the Evan Callahan, the billionaire guy who owns like half the city? That's the one. And he just defended you? Got Tom fired? Yes. And sent you home in his car? Yes. Jason shook his head. That's insane. That's like movie stuff. I know. Do you think he likes you? Lila laughed despite everything. Jason, he's a billionaire CEO. I'm a waitress. He was just being a decent human being. Decent human beings don't usually buy people cars home and give them their personal number. He was making sure I was safe. Uh-huh, Jason grinned. I'm just saying, if a billionaire rescued me from my terrible boss, I'd at least consider the possibility that he thought I was special. Lila threw a couch pillow at him. You watch too many romantic movies. And you don't watch enough. He got up, stretching. I'm glad Tom's gone. He sounded like a creep. He was. And I'm glad someone finally stood up for you. You deserve that. Lila's eyes stung with tears. Thanks, kid. I'm not a kid. I'm 14. Still my kid brother. Jason rolled his eyes but smiled. I'm going to bed. You should too. You look exhausted. After he disappeared into their shared bedroom, Lila sat alone in the quiet apartment. She pulled out the business card Evan had given her. Simple, elegant. Evan Callahan. CEO, Callahan Group. And a phone number written on the back in his handwriting. Call if you need anything, I mean it. EC. Lila traced the numbers with her finger. Part of her wanted to dismiss tonight as a fluke, a powerful man doing a good deed and then moving on with his life. But another part, the part that had felt something shift when Evan looked at her with genuine concern, wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something more. The next morning, Lila woke to her phone ringing. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. Hello? Ms. Dawson? This is Catherine Wells, Chief HR Officer for Rosemont Grand Hotel. Lila's heart sank. This was it. They were firing her for causing drama with a guest. I'm calling to inform you that we've opened a full investigation into Thomas Riley's conduct and the hotel's handling of your previous complaint. Lila sat up straighter. You have? Yes, Mr. Callahan contacted our parent company last night and provided a detailed account of what he witnessed. We take harassment very seriously, and we apologize that your initial complaint wasn't handled appropriately. Thank you. Additionally, we'd like to offer you a position as Assistant Events Coordinator. It's a salaried position with full benefits, and it would remove you from serving staff duties. Lila couldn't breathe. I don't understand. Mr. Callahan recommended you personally, said you've demonstrated professionalism, grace under pressure, and strong work ethic. The position is yours if you want it. Yes, I want it. Excellent. Can you come in tomorrow to complete the paperwork? Of course. After she hung up, Lila stared at her phone in shock. A promotion, a salary, benefits. All because Evan Callahan had seen her, had believed her, had used his power to help her instead of ignore her. Her phone buzzed again. A text from another unknown number. Gerald mentioned you made it home safely. I'm glad. Congratulations on the new position. You earned it. Evan Callahan. Lila's heart did something strange in her chest. She typed back carefully. Thank you. For everything. I don't know how to repay you. The response came quickly. You don't owe me anything, but if you want to thank me, accept the job and build a future for yourself and your brother. That's all the thanks I need. Lila read the message 3 times, her throat tight with emotion. She typed back, I will. Thank you for believing in me. Easy to believe in someone who's clearly capable. Take care, Lila. She stared at her name on the screen. Not Ms. Dawson. Lila. Like they were equals. Like she mattered. 3 days later, Lila walked into the Rosemont Grand Hotel through the front entrance for the first time. Not the staff entrance in the back, the main doors, like a guest. She was dressed in the best outfit she owned, a simple navy dress she'd bought secondhand, paired with the only professional shoes she had. It wasn't much compared to the designer suit she saw in the lobby, but it was hers, and today it would be enough. Catherine Wells met her in the HR office, a professional woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Ms. Dawson, welcome. Please sit. Lila sat, her hands folded nervously in her lap. I want to start by apologizing, Catherine said. Your complaint about Mr. Riley should have been taken seriously. Our previous HR director failed you, and that's unacceptable. Thank you. As of yesterday, that director has been terminated. I've been brought in specifically to overhaul our employee protection policies. Catherine slid a folder across the desk. This is your new employment contract. Assistant Events Coordinator, $48,000 annually, full health benefits, paid time off, and a signing bonus of $2,000. Lila's eyes widened. $48,000. That was more than double what she'd been making. That was rent paid on time, groceries without counting pennies, maybe even saving for Jason's college. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help us make this hotel a place where every employee feels safe and valued. I will. I promise. After signing the paperwork, Catherine walked her to the events office. It was small but bright, with a window overlooking the hotel gardens. A desk, a computer, and a nameplate that read, Lila Dawson, Assistant Events Coordinator. Your supervisor is Richard Chen. He'll train you on event logistics, vendor management, all of it. You start Monday. Lila touched the nameplate, barely believing it was real. Thank you, really. Catherine smiled. Thank Mr. Callahan. He made this happen. After Catherine left, Lila stood alone in her new office. She pulled out her phone and found Evan's number, hesitated, then typed, I just finished signing the paperwork. I have my own office, a nameplate. I don't have words big enough to thank you. The response came within minutes. Congratulations. You're going to do great things, Lila, I'm sure of it. She smiled, about to put her phone away, when another message appeared. And if you're free this Friday evening, I'd like to take you to dinner. Not as your boss or benefactor, just as someone who'd like to get to know you better. No pressure, only if you're comfortable. Lila's heart stuttered. Evan Callahan was asking her to dinner, not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because he wanted to know her. She thought about Jason's teasing, about the way Evan had looked at her that night, not like she was broken or pathetic, but like she was worth protecting. About the strange flutter in her chest every time she thought about him. This was probably a terrible idea. He was a billionaire. She was a girl from the wrong side of town with more problems than solutions. But he'd also been kind when he didn't have to be, brave when others looked away. And maybe, just maybe, she deserved to take a chance on something good. Lila typed back, Friday sounds perfect. Have you ever had someone come into your life at exactly the right moment? Someone who saw you when you felt invisible? Drop a comment and let us know. Friday arrived faster than Lila expected. She'd spent the week settling into her new role, learning the ins and outs of event planning, and getting to know her supervisor, Richard, a kind, efficient man in his 40s who treated her like a colleague, not a subordinate. The job was challenging but exciting. She was using her brain in ways she hadn't in years, contributing ideas, being heard, mattering. But underneath the professional excitement was the nervous anticipation of Friday dinner. Lila had exactly one nice dress that wasn't a uniform, a simple black dress she'd worn to her parents' funeral 7 years ago and hadn't touched since. She tried it on Friday afternoon, staring at her reflection. It still fit, though she'd lost weight since then, stress and skipped meals taking their toll. But it would have to do. Jason appeared in the doorway of their shared bedroom. Wow, you look fancy. I look nervous. Why? It's just dinner. With a billionaire. Who clearly likes you. Lila turned to face her brother. What if this is a mistake? What if I'm misreading everything and he's just being nice because he feels sorry for me? Jason crossed his arms. Lila, I've watched you shrink yourself for years, making yourself smaller, quieter, less. Because of money, because of Tom, because you thought that's what you had to do to survive. He stepped closer. But this guy, he saw you and decided you deserved more. And instead of being scared of that, maybe you should trust it. Lila's eyes filled with tears. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't listen. She pulled him into a hug. I love you. You know that? Love you too. Now go. Your fancy car is probably waiting. Gerald picked her up at exactly 7 p.m. He smiled when he saw her. You look lovely, miss. Thank you, Gerald. The drive took them to a restaurant Lila had only seen in magazines, Aurora, a Michelin-starred establishment overlooking the river. She'd walked past it once and looked at the menu posted outside. Entrees started at $70, more than she used to make in a full shift. Gerald opened her door. Mr. Callahan is waiting inside. Enjoy your evening. Lila walked through the elegant entrance, feeling desperately out of place. The hostess smiled warmly. Miss Dawson, right this way. She led Lila through the dining room, all soft lighting and quiet conversations, to a private table by the window. And there was Evan. He stood when he saw her, and Lila's breath caught. He wasn't wearing a suit tonight, just dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked younger, more relaxed, and when he smiled, it reached his eyes. Lila, you look beautiful. Thank you. You look not like a CEO. He laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. He pulled out her chair, and Lila sat, hyper-aware of every movement. Thank you for coming, Evan said, sitting across from her. I wasn't sure you would. Why wouldn't I? Because I'm your employer's business partner, and that creates an uncomfortable power dynamic. Because you might feel obligated. Because this might feel inappropriate. His honesty caught her off guard. Does it feel inappropriate to you? She asked. Honestly, I don't know. I've never done this before. Asked someone to dinner? Asked someone I helped to dinner. It blurs lines I usually keep very clear. Lila appreciated his directness. So why did you? Evan was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because when I saw you that night, before Tom even grabbed you, I saw someone who was strong but exhausted, someone who was carrying weight they shouldn't have to carry alone, and it reminded me of someone. Your mother. Yes, but also myself. Before I had money and power and the luxury of choosing who I let into my life. He met her eyes, and I wanted to know you, not as someone I helped, but as a person. So I'm asking, can we set aside the circumstances of how we met and just have dinner? Two people getting to know each other. Lila felt something loosen in her chest. I'd like that. The conversation flowed easier than Lila expected. Evan asked about Jason, and she found herself talking about raising him, the challenges, the pride, the fear of not being enough. He sounds like a good kid, Evan said. He is. He's the reason I kept going when things got hard. What are his dreams? College, maybe engineering. He's brilliant with computers and math. Is he applying for scholarships? We're looking into it, but college is expensive, even with aid. Evan nodded thoughtfully. What about your dreams? Lila blinked. My dreams? Yes. What did you want to do before life got in the way? No one had asked her that in years. I wanted to study art history, maybe work in a museum or gallery. I love the stories behind beautiful things, the history, the context, what they meant to the people who created them. Why didn't you? Because parents dying and raising a teenager doesn't leave much room for art history degrees. But you still love it. Yes. Evan smiled. Then maybe it's not too late. I'm 23 with a high school diploma and responsibilities. It's too late. It's never too late to pursue something that matters to you. He said it with such certainty that Lila almost believed him. Over dinner, food so exquisite, Lila almost felt guilty eating it. Evan shared pieces of his own story, growing up poor, watching his mother suffer, building his company from nothing. People think wealth solves everything, he said quietly. But it doesn't. It gives you options, yes, security, but it doesn't heal old wounds, doesn't replace what you lost. What did you lose? Time, with my mother. I was so busy building an empire that by the time I had the money to really help her, she was already sick, already dying. His voice roughened. I bought her the best doctors, the best treatments, but I couldn't buy more time. And I regret every late night at the office, every missed call, every moment I chose work over her." Lila reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "She knew you loved her." "Did she? Or did she just know I was successful?" Evan turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "Thank you for saying that." They sat like that for a moment, hands intertwined, the weight of shared grief connecting them. "Can I ask you something?" Lila said softly. "Anything. Why did you really intervene that night? The truth." Evan was quiet for a long moment. "Because I saw my mother in you. Not physically, but the way you carried yourself. Like you'd learned to make yourself small to survive. Like you believed you deserved what was happening." He squeezed her hand gently. "And I couldn't walk away. Not again. Not when I had the power to do something. So you saved me for her." "No. I saved you for you. But maybe also to prove to myself that I could. That I wouldn't stand by and watch someone suffer when I had the means to intervene." Lila felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. For seeing me. For caring when you didn't have to." "Lila, caring about you isn't something I had to do. It's something I wanted to do. There's a difference." After dinner, Evan walked her to the car. The night was cool, the city lights reflecting off the river. "Thank you for tonight," Lila said. "For the dinner, the conversation, all of it. Thank you for giving me a chance. I know the circumstances are complicated." "They are, but I'm glad I came." Evan smiled. "Can I see you again? Not just at work events. Actually see you." Lila's heart raced. "I'd like that." "Good, because I really enjoy your company." He hesitated, then stepped closer. "Is it okay if I—" Lila understood what he was asking. Permission, consent, something Tom had never bothered with. "Yes," she whispered. Evan cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. Then he leaned down and kissed her. Soft, careful, like she was something precious. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "I'll call you tomorrow," Evan said. "I'll answer." Lila climbed into the car, and as Gerald drove away, she looked back. Evan stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching until she was out of sight. Just like the first night, making sure she was safe. And Lila realized something profound. For the first time since her parents died, she didn't feel alone. She had Jason, yes. But now she also had someone who saw her strength, valued her voice and made her feel like she deserved good things. Someone who made her want to be brave. And as the city lights blurred past the window, Lila smiled. Because this, whatever this was becoming, felt like the beginning of something beautiful. The next 3 months transformed Lila's life in ways she'd never imagined possible. The new job at the Rosemont Grand gave her stability she'd never had. A salary that meant she could pay rent on time, buy Jason new shoes without checking her bank account 3 times, even start a small savings account for emergencies. But more than the financial security, it gave her confidence. She was good at this work. Event coordination required attention to detail, creative problem solving, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. All skills she'd developed surviving the last 7 years. Richard, her supervisor, praised her regularly, started giving her more responsibility, let her take lead on smaller events, and Lila discovered something she'd forgotten about herself. She was capable, smart, worthy of respect. But the biggest change wasn't professional. It was Evan. They saw each other twice a week at first, dinner on Fridays, coffee on Sunday mornings before Lila's shift, always in public places, always respectful of boundaries. Evan never pushed for more than she was comfortable giving, never used his wealth or position to pressure her, just showed up consistently, genuinely interested in her life. He asked about Jason's school projects, remembered details from previous conversations, made her laugh in ways she hadn't in years, and slowly, carefully, Lila let her guard down. Started believing this might be real, that someone like Evan Callahan could actually care about someone like her, not out of pity or obligation, but genuine affection. One Sunday morning, 6 weeks after their first date, they sat in a small coffee shop far from the expensive restaurants Evan usually frequented. Lila had picked it, a neighborhood place near her apartment where coffee cost $3 instead of $8. Evan hadn't blinked, just ordered a regular coffee and a blueberry muffin like he did this every day. Jason has a school science fair next Thursday, Lila said, stirring sugar into her coffee. He's building a model of a sustainable energy grid. It's pretty impressive, actually. He sounds brilliant. He is. Too smart for his own good sometimes. Evan smiled. I'd like to meet him. Properly, I mean. Not just in passing. Lila's hand stilled. You want to meet my brother? If that's okay. I know it's a big step, introducing someone to family. But I'd like Jason to know I'm not just some guy taking his sister to dinner. That I'm serious about this. About this? Evan reached across the table, taking her hand. About you, Lila, I'm serious about you. Lila's heart hammered in her chest. Evan, you're a billionaire CEO. Don't, he interrupted gently. Don't diminish yourself. You're a brilliant, strong, compassionate woman who survived things that would have broken most people. Your bank account doesn't define your worth. But people will talk. They already are. It was true. Lila had noticed the whispers at work, the speculation. Some people thought it was romantic, a modern fairy tale. Others were less kind, suggested she'd slept her way into her promotion, that Evan was going through a phase and would get bored, that she was using him for money. Let them talk, Evan said firmly. I don't care what they think, I care what you think. Lila looked down at their joined hands. I think I'm scared. Scared this is too good to be true. Scared you'll wake up one day and realize you could have anyone. And why would you choose me? Evan stood, came around the table, and knelt beside her chair, right there in the coffee shop, in front of a dozen strangers. Look at me. Lila did. He was getting closer. Lila backed up toward the hotel entrance. You ruined my life, Tom continued, his voice rising. I can't get hired anywhere. My wife left me. I lost my apartment, all because you couldn't take a compliment. You assaulted me. I barely touched you. You grabbed me, you cornered me, you made my life hell for 8 months. People were starting to notice now. A doorman stepped forward. Miss Dawson, is there a problem? Yes, this man is harassing me. The doorman, a large man named Marcus, positioned himself between Lila and Tom. Sir, you need to leave. This is a public sidewalk, and this is private property. Leave now, or I call the police. Tom's hands clenched into fists. This isn't over, Lila. You think Evan Callahan actually cares about you. You're a project, a charity case, and when he gets bored, you'll have nothing. Leave now. Marcus's voice was firm. Tom shot Lila one last, hateful look. You'll regret this. He turned and walked away, but his words echoed in Lila's mind. A project, a charity case. Marcus insisted on calling Evan. He needs to know there's been an incident. Lila tried to protest, but Marcus was already dialing. 20 minutes later, Evan's car screeched to a stop in front of the hotel. He was out before Gerald had even put it in park. Are you okay? His hands were on her shoulders, his eyes scanning her face for injuries. I'm fine, Tom just showed up, said some things. What things? Lila hesitated. It doesn't matter. What things? His voice was steel. He said I ruined his life, that you're just using me, that when you get bored I'll have nothing. Evan's jaw tightened. Did he touch you? No. Marcus stopped him before he got too close. Evan turned to the doorman. Thank you. I'll make sure this is reflected in your next review. He looked back at Lila. I'm filing a restraining order, and I'm having my security team add you to their protection roster. Evan, that's too much. It's not enough. Tom made threats. He's clearly unstable, and I'm not taking any chances with your safety. He pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry. I should have anticipated this, should have made sure he couldn't get near you. Lila leaned into his chest, trying to calm her racing heart. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? I got him fired. Of course he'd want revenge. He got himself fired by being an abusive predator. Evan pulled back, looking at her seriously. What he said about you being a project, a charity case, you know that's not true, right? Lila didn't answer immediately because part of her, the scared, insecure part, wondered if Tom was right. Lila, look at me. She did. You are not a project. You're the woman I'm in love with. The person who makes me want to be better, who challenges me and grounds me and makes me laugh. He cupped her face gently. Tom is trying to get in your head because he knows words can hurt when he can't physically reach you. Don't let him. I'm trying. I know, and I'm here. Whatever you need, more security, a different place to live, anything. Just say the word. If this story is resonating with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share stories about love, courage, and standing up to bullies every week. Despite Evan's protective measures, Tom's words had done their damage. Over the next few days, Lila found herself pulling back, making excuses when Evan suggested dinner, being quieter during their conversations, watching him for signs that he was getting tired of her. Evan noticed, of course. That Friday, instead of their usual restaurant date, he showed up at her apartment. Jason let him in, giving Lila a pointed look before disappearing into their bedroom. "We need to talk," Evan said. Lila's stomach dropped. This was it, the moment Tom had predicted. Evan was going to end things. Okay. They sat on her worn couch, so different from the luxury Evan was used to. "You've been distant this week, ever since Tom showed up. I'm just tired. Don't lie to me, Lila. Please." She looked down at her hands. "What if he's right? What if this is just temporary? What if you wake up one day and realize you could have someone who fits your world better?" Someone like who? Someone rich, someone educated, someone who doesn't come with a teenage brother and debt and trauma from an abusive boss? Evan took her hands. "Look around this apartment, Lila. What do you see? A small, run-down place that barely fits two people. I see a home. I see evidence of a woman who's kept her family together against impossible odds. I see love in every detail, the photos on the wall, the homework on the table, the effort you put into making this place safe for Jason." He squeezed her hands. "This apartment has more warmth than my penthouse ever has, because you built something real here, something that matters. But your world, my world is lonely and hollow without you in it. I don't want someone who fits that world. I want someone who makes me question it, who reminds me what actually matters." Tears streamed down Lila's face. "I'm scared, Evan. Scared of needing you. Scared of what happens if this falls apart." "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I'm scared of screwing this up, of letting you down, of being too much or not enough." He pulled her close. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." Lila buried her face in his chest. "Tom really messed with my head. I know, and I'm going to make sure he can't do it again." "How?" "I've hired a private investigator. If Tom is violating the restraining order or making threats, we'll have documentation. And I've asked my legal team to explore options for a more permanent solution." Lila pulled back. "What kind of solution?" "Legally keeping him away from you, permanently." "That's intense." "So is stalking and harassment. He's not going to stop unless we make him." Lila nodded slowly. "Okay, but Evan?" "Yeah." "I need to fight too. I can't just let you handle everything. I need to feel like I have power in this." Evan smiled. "What do you want to do?" "I want to confront him officially, tell my story so he can't control the narrative anymore." "That's brave. Or stupid." "Brave," Evan insisted. "And I'll be right there with you." 2 weeks later, Lila sat across from a reporter at a coffee shop. Not a tabloid journalist, a legitimate reporter from a respected publication doing a series on workplace harassment. Evan had connected them, but the decision to speak was entirely Lila's. The reporter, a woman in her 40s named Patricia, had kind eyes and a professional demeanor. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me, Lila. I know this isn't easy." "It's necessary," Lila said. "I stayed silent for too long." Over the next hour, Lila told her story: the harassment, the failed HR complaint, the assault in the hallway, Evan's intervention, and Tom's recent stalking and threats. Patricia recorded everything, taking careful notes. "This is powerful," she said when Lila finished, "and unfortunately not uncommon. Women in service industries face harassment at alarming rates, and HR departments often protect management over employees." "I want people to know they're not alone," Lila said. "That speaking up is hard but possible, that sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Your relationship with Evan Callahan, some people might see it as problematic, a power imbalance." Lila had expected this question. "I understand that concern, and yes, there's a wealth gap between us, but Evan has never used that to pressure or control me. He's given me choices, not ultimatums, support, not demands." "But he did offer you a job." "After I'd already been promoted at the hotel, and I earned that position through my own work ethic and skills. Evan simply made sure the people making hiring decisions knew I existed." Patricia nodded, making notes. "What would you say to other women facing similar situations?" Lila took a breath. "Document everything, every inappropriate comment, every unwanted touch, every threat. Tell someone you trust, and if the system fails you the first time, don't give up. Find allies. Find people with power who are willing to use it for good." "And what about love that develops from rescue situations? Some psychologists call it hero syndrome." "I thought about that," Lila admitted. "Worried I was confusing gratitude with affection. But what I feel for Evan isn't about what he did for me. It's about who he is, his kindness, his integrity, the way he treats everyone from his driver to his business partners with equal respect." She smiled softly. "He didn't rescue me. He gave me space to rescue myself." The article ran 3 weeks later. Breaking the Silence: How One Woman's Courage Exposed Systemic Harassment at Luxury Hotels. It featured Lila's story prominently, but also interviewed 4 other women who'd faced harassment at the Rosemont Grand over the years, women who'd been too afraid to speak up, until they saw Lila do it first. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The hotel's parent company issued a public apology, announced a complete overhaul of their HR policies, created an anonymous reporting system, mandated harassment training for all management. 3 other managers at different properties were quietly terminated after investigations, and Catherine Wells, the new HR director, was promoted to VP of Employee Relations for the entire chain. But there was also backlash. Online comments ranged from supportive to vicious. Some people called Lila brave, others called her a gold digger who'd manipulated her way into a billionaire's bed. The worst ones said she'd probably enjoyed the attention from Tom and only complained when a richer man came along. Lila tried not to read the comments, but it was impossible to avoid them completely. One particularly cruel blog post went viral. "Cinderella or Con Artist? The Truth About Lila Dawson." It dug into her past, her family, her finances, implied she'd been planning this from the beginning, that she'd deliberately put herself in Tom's path to create a harassment claim, that Evan was being played. Lila read it alone in her apartment, tears streaming down her face. Jason found her there. "Hey, you okay?" "They're saying I planned this, that I'm using Evan, that everything I said about Tom was a lie to get money." Jason sat beside her, reading the article over her shoulder. Then he took her laptop and closed it. "These people don't know you. They don't know what Tom did. They're just scared because you're disrupting their comfortable narrative." "What narrative?" "That rich men are always the victims and women always the manipulators. That harassment only matters if the woman is perfect and blameless." He put his arm around his sister. "You told the truth. You helped other women find the courage to speak up. That's what matters, not what some anonymous trolls think." "But what if Evan starts believing them? What if he starts wondering if they're right?" "Then he's not the man you think he is." "But I don't believe that. I've seen the way he looks at you." Evan called that evening. "I saw the article," The real one. And the trash. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I'm furious that people are attacking you, but I'm also incredibly proud of you. Proud? You told your story knowing there'd be backlash. You did it anyway because it might help someone else. That's courage, Lila. It doesn't feel courageous. It feels like I made everything worse. You didn't. You exposed a system that was protecting abusers. That's never making things worse. Lila heard the conviction in his voice. Evan, are you sure about this? About us? Because it would be so much easier for you to just stop. Right there. His voice was firm but gentle. I'm not walking away because some internet trolls are threatened by a woman standing up for herself. I'm not abandoning you because telling the truth got messy. But your reputation... My reputation is built on decades of business decisions and philanthropy. One blogger with an agenda can't destroy that. And honestly, I don't care what they say about me. I care that they're hurting you. Lila wiped her eyes. I just don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years, and I'll keep saying that until you believe it. The next morning, Evan did something unexpected. He held a press conference. Not a statement through publicists. A full press conference at Callahan Group headquarters, with cameras and reporters and live streaming. Lila only found out when Catherine called her. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Now. Lila grabbed the remote, switching on the small TV in their apartment. And there was Evan, standing at a podium, looking calm and professional, and absolutely furious. I'm here to address the recent articles and social media posts targeting Lila Dawson, he began. Ms. Dawson is a colleague and yes, someone I'm in a relationship with, but more importantly, she's a survivor of workplace harassment who found the courage to speak up. And instead of celebrating that courage, certain individuals have chosen to attack her character. He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd of reporters. I want to be very clear. Lila Dawson did not seek me out, did not manipulate me, did not fabricate claims for financial gain. She was a hard-working employee being harassed by a manager who abused his position of power. I witnessed that harassment firsthand. I saw Thomas Riley assault her, and I intervened because it was the right thing to do, not because I had ulterior motives, not because I wanted anything from her, but because no one should be treated that way. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Callahan, critics say the power dynamic between you makes any relationship inappropriate. Then those critics don't understand what an inappropriate power dynamic actually looks like, Evan interrupted. Tom Riley controlled Lila's employment, her income, her ability to support her family. He used that power to harass and intimidate her. That's an inappropriate power dynamic. I offered Lila support, resources, and respect. I've never threatened her job, her security, or her choices. She's free to walk away at any time, that's the difference. Another reporter. But you did help her get promoted. I recommended her for a position she was qualified for, based on skills I'd observed and a work ethic her previous supervisors documented, just like I've recommended dozens of candidates over the years. The only difference is, I'm dating this one. He leaned forward. And that's the real issue, isn't it? People can't accept that a woman from a working-class background could be both a victim of harassment and worthy of professional advancement, that she could deserve both justice and love. Lila Dawson is brilliant, compassionate, and strong. She survived losing her parents, raising her brother alone, and 8 months of systematic harassment. She earned every opportunity she's received. Evan's voice softened. I fell in love with her because of who she is, not what I could do for her. And I'm not going to let anyone, reporters, bloggers, or trolls, diminish her truth or our relationship. He straightened. That's all I have to say. Thank you. He walked off the podium, ignoring the shouted questions. Lila sat on her couch, stunned. Evan had just publicly defended her, declared his love for her on camera, put his reputation on the line. Her phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Sorry I didn't warn you, but I needed to say that. Call me when you can. Lila called immediately. You just went on national television and told the world you love me. I did. Evan, I know it was public, and maybe too much, but I couldn't stay silent while they attacked you. You've been brave enough to tell your truth. The least I could do is stand beside you." Lila's voice broke. "Thank you for believing me, for defending me, for loving me. Always. Are you okay?" "I am now." "Good. Because I'm coming over, and I'm bringing dinner, and we're going to ignore the internet for the rest of the night." "What about work?" "Work can wait. You're more important." That evening, Evan, Lila, and Jason sat around the small kitchen table, eating Thai takeout and talking about everything except harassment and internet trolls. Jason told stories about his robotics club. Evan shared embarrassing moments from his early career. Lila laughed until her sides hurt. And for a few hours, everything felt normal, like they were just three people who cared about each other sharing a meal. After Jason went to bed, Lila and Evan sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder. "I've been thinking," Evan said quietly. "About what?" "About the future. About what I want." Lila sat up, looking at him. "And what do you want?" "I want you, and Jason, and a life that's about more than board meetings and profit margins." He took her hand. "I want to wake up next to you. I want to help Jason with college applications. I want to build something real, not just a company but a family." Lila's heart was racing. "Evan, are you saying I'm not proposing?" "Not yet. You've been through too much and I don't want you to feel rushed." He squeezed her hand. "But I'm saying I see a future with you. And when you're ready, whether that's 6 months or 6 years from now, I'll ask. And I'll hope you say yes." Lila kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I see that future too." The next few weeks settled into a new normal. The media attention gradually faded. The hotel implemented its new policies, and Tom Riley finally faced consequences. The private investigator Evan hired found evidence that Tom had violated his restraining order multiple times. More importantly, they found 2 additional women willing to testify about his behavior. The district attorney filed criminal charges: stalking, harassment, assault. Tom was arrested. His bail was set high enough that he couldn't afford it. And for the first time since Lila had met him, Tom Riley was behind bars. Lila attended the arraignment with Evan beside her, watched Tom stand before a judge in an orange jumpsuit, heard the charges read aloud, saw his expensive lawyer try and fail to get the charges dismissed. When the judge denied bail reduction and set a trial date, Lila finally exhaled. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but this time, Lila didn't hide. She stood beside Evan and made a brief statement. "Today the system worked, not because I'm dating someone powerful, but because enough evidence existed to prove a pattern of abuse. I hope this encourages other survivors to come forward. Your voice matters, your truth matters, and there are people who will fight for you." A reporter called out, "What's next for you and Mr. Callahan?" Lila smiled. "We're going to live our lives, build our future, and keep working to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else." Do you believe in using power and privilege to protect others? Drop a comment and let us know. And if this story is moving you, please subscribe and share it. That night, Evan took Lila to his penthouse for the first time. She'd been avoiding it, feeling like it was too much, too intimidating. But he'd asked her to trust him and she did. The penthouse was everything she'd expected: sleek, modern, expensive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than she'd make in a year, art on the walls that belonged in museums. But it also felt empty, cold, like a showroom instead of a home. "I know it's a lot," Evan said, watching her take it in. "It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel like you." "It's not. It's what I thought success looked like. Impressive, untouchable." He took her hand, leading her to the windows. "But since meeting you, I've realized I don't want impressive. I want warm, real. I want a home that feels lived in. So what are you going to do?" "I want to ask you something, and you can absolutely say no. Lila's heart raced. Okay, move in with me. You and Jason both. Lila blinked. What? Not here. I'm going to sell this place, buy something different. A real home with room for all of us, where Jason can have his own space and you don't have to worry about rent or broken water heaters. Evan, that's too much, I know. But think about it practically. You're paying $1,500 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment with broken appliances. That money could go toward Jason's college fund instead. But we've only been together 4 months. I know, and if you're not ready, I understand. But I'm ready. I love you. I love the life I see when I'm with you, and I want to build that life together. Lila walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Everything was moving so fast. 4 months ago, she'd been invisible, terrified, trapped. Now she was standing in a billionaire's penthouse, being offered a future she'd never imagined. What about Jason? She asked quietly. Have you thought about what it means to live with a teenager? The noise, the mess, the attitude? Evan smiled. I grew up poor, remember? I shared a bedroom with my cousin until I was 16. I can handle teenage attitude. And if this doesn't work out, if we fight or break up, then we handle it like adults. I'll make sure you and Jason are taken care of regardless. I'd never use housing as leverage. Lila turned to face him. You've thought this through. I've thought about nothing else for weeks. She crossed back to him. Can I have time? To talk to Jason, to think about what this means? Of course. Take all the time you need. Lila kissed him softly. Thank you for being patient, for not pushing. I'd wait forever if that's what you needed. That weekend, Lila sat Jason down for a serious conversation. Evan asked us to move in with him. Jason looked up from his phone, eyes wide. Seriously? Seriously, he wants to buy a house with room for all of us. What did you say? I said I needed to talk to you first. Jason set down his phone. Do you love him? Yes. Does he love you? He says he does. Do you believe him? Lila thought about the last 4 months, about how Evan showed up consistently, how he defended her publicly, how he treated Jason with respect, how he'd never once used his wealth to control or manipulate her. Yes, I believe him. Jason nodded slowly. Then I think we should do it. Really? Lila, you've been taking care of me since I was 7, working 2 jobs, skipping meals so I could eat, giving up your dreams so I could have a future. His voice cracked. Maybe it's time you let someone take care of you for once. Lila pulled him into a hug. You're my priority. Always. I know, but I'm not a little kid anymore. And Evan, he's good. He's good for you, and honestly, having my own room and not worrying about rent sounds pretty great. Lila laughed through tears. Okay, we'll tell him yes. One condition, though. What? I get to help pick the house. No way I'm living somewhere without a decent gaming setup space. Deal. 3 months later, Lila stood in the foyer of a beautiful Victorian house in a tree-lined neighborhood. Not a mansion, not a penthouse, just a home. 4 bedrooms, a backyard, a kitchen with an actual breakfast nook, and a finished basement that Jason had immediately claimed for his gaming and robotics lab. Evan had let them choose it together, walked through a dozen properties until Lila found the one that felt right, the one with character and warmth and space for a family to grow. This is really ours? Jason asked for the 10th time, exploring the house with barely contained excitement. Really ours, Evan confirmed, smiling at the teenager's enthusiasm. Lila stood in the living room, still processing. 2 weeks ago, she'd been living in a cramped apartment where the heat barely worked. Now she was standing in a house with crown molding and hardwood floors and windows that let in actual sunlight. You okay? Evan asked, coming up beside her. I keep waiting to wake up, for this to be a dream. It's not a dream, it's just life. Our life. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. Do you like it? Really? Because if it's too much or feels wrong, we can find something else. It's perfect, Lila interrupted, leaning back against him. Absolutely perfect. The first few weeks of living together were an adjustment. Evan had lived alone for 15 years. Lila had lived with only Jason for 7. Suddenly they were navigating shared space, different routines, and the mundane intimacy of daily life. Evan discovered that Lila sang off-key in the shower. Lila discovered that Evan was incapable of putting dishes directly in the dishwasher. Jason discovered that having a billionaire in the house didn't mean unlimited video game purchases. Evan had firm opinions about screen time and homework, but they also discovered the joy of ordinary moments. Sunday morning pancakes made together in their kitchen, movie nights with Jason arguing passionately about which film to watch, Evan helping Jason with calculus homework and being genuinely impressed by the kids' math skills. Lila coming home from work to find Evan and Jason building a robot in the basement, both covered in grease and grinning. It wasn't always easy. They had their first real fight 6 weeks in, about something stupid, Evan making a major financial decision without consulting Lila. "I was trying to help," he'd said, frustrated. "I saw you were stressed about Jason's college fund, so I started one." "Without asking me?" "I didn't think I needed permission to help my family." "That's exactly the problem. You can't just throw money at things without discussing it with me first. I'm not a charity case you're managing." The words had hung between them, sharp and painful. Evan had gone very still. "Is that what you think this is? Me managing you? I think you're used to solving problems with your checkbook, and sometimes I need you to just ask. Include me. Treat me like a partner, not a project." They'd both walked away angry. Lila had gone upstairs, Evan to his office. It was Jason who'd intervened. "You guys know you're being ridiculous, right?" He'd stood between them, arms crossed. "Evan, you screwed up by not asking first. That's controlling even if you meant well." Then he'd turned to Lila. "And you're so scared of being his charity case that you can't accept when someone just wants to help. He loves us. That's not the same as pitying us." Both adults had stared at the 14-year-old. "When did you get so wise?" Lila had asked. "I've always been wise. You just don't listen." That night, Evan and Lila had talked, really talked, about boundaries, communication, and the difference between helping and controlling. Evan apologized for overstepping. Lila apologized for letting her insecurities make her defensive. And they established new ground rules. Major decisions got discussed. Always. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that mattered more than perfect. 2 months after moving in, Tom Riley's trial began. Lila had been dreading this, having to face him again, having to relive everything in front of strangers, but she wasn't alone this time. Evan sat in the courtroom gallery, a steady presence. Catherine Wells from the hotel attended to show organizational support, and 2 of the other women who'd testified against Tom sat beside Lila in the witness waiting room. "Thank you," one of them, Jennifer, 26, a former bartender, said quietly, "for speaking up first. I never would have had the courage if you hadn't." "We're stronger together," Lila replied. When it was her turn to testify, Lila walked to the witness stand with her head high. Tom sat at the defense table, looking smaller than she remembered, broken. His expensive lawyer, a woman in her 50s who radiated calculated aggression, stood to cross-examine. "Ms. Dawson, isn't it true that you're currently living with Evan Callahan, the man who intervened in your alleged harassment?" "Yes." "And he's paying for your housing, correct?" "We share a home that he purchased, yes." "So you have a financial incentive to maintain this narrative of victimhood." Lila met the lawyer's eyes steadily. "I have a relationship with a man who treated me with respect when my boss didn't. Those 2 things aren't related." "Aren't they? You went from a struggling waitress to living in a mansion in less than a year. That's quite an upgrade." "It's a house, not a mansion, and I went from being harassed at work to being safe. That's the upgrade that matters." The lawyer switched tactics. "You claim my client assaulted you, but you never sought medical attention." "Because I was afraid of losing my job." "Or because there was no assault, just a manager disciplining an employee who'd made a costly mistake?" "He grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises. He cornered me. He put his hands on me without consent. That's assault." "According to you." "According to Evan Callahan, who witnessed it, according to the doorman who saw Tom harassing me weeks later, according to the pattern of behavior documented by 3 other women. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Andrea Santos, stood. Objection. Defense is badgering the witness. Sustained. Move on, counselor. The cross-examination continued for another hour. But Lila didn't break. Didn't let the lawyer twist her words or make her doubt herself. When she finally stepped down, Evan was waiting in the hallway. He pulled her into his arms without a word. "I'm okay," Lila whispered. "I know. You were incredible." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Testimony from Lila, Jennifer, and 2 other victims, expert witnesses on workplace harassment, evidence of Tom's restraining order violations, and finally, Evan's testimony about what he'd witnessed that night. The defense tried to paint him as a white knight with a savior complex, suggested his relationship with Lila proved he had ulterior motives. But Evan's testimony was calm, factual, and devastating. "I saw Thomas Riley grab Ms. Dawson forcefully. I saw him back her against a wall. I heard him berating her in a way that was clearly meant to intimidate. That's not discipline. That's abuse of power." "And your relationship with Ms. Dawson," the defense attorney pressed, "developed months later after she'd already been promoted based on her own merit. Our personal relationship has nothing to do with Tom Riley's pattern of harassment." "But you did use your influence to get him fired." "I used my influence to hold an abuser accountable. If that's controversial, it says more about your priorities than mine." The courtroom had been silent after that. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Lila, Evan, and Jason sat in a courthouse waiting room, nerves stretched thin. "What if they don't believe me?" Lila said quietly. "They will," Evan said with certainty. "But what if—" "Then we appeal. We keep fighting. We don't give up." Jason, who'd been allowed to skip school for the verdict, looked up from his phone. "He's going down. The evidence is overwhelming." "How can you be so sure?" Lila asked. "Because truth wins. Eventually. Maybe not always fast, but it wins." 20 minutes later, they were called back into the courtroom. The jury filed in, their faces unreadable. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." Lila held Evan's hand so tightly, her knuckles went white. "On the charge of assault in the 3rd degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." Lila's breath caught. "On the charge of stalking, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of harassment, how do you find?" "Guilty." One by one, guilty verdicts on every count. Tom's face crumpled. His lawyer immediately started talking about appeals. But it didn't matter. For the first time since Lila had met him, Tom Riley was being held accountable. Outside the courthouse, Lila stood with the other women who'd testified. They hugged, cried, and celebrated quietly. "We did it," Jennifer said, tears streaming down her face. "We actually did it." "You did it," Lila corrected. "All of you, for being brave enough to speak up." A reporter approached, asking for a comment. Lila took a breath and stepped forward. "Today, justice was served, not just for me, but for every woman Tom Riley hurt, every person who's been harassed at work and told to stay quiet, every survivor who's been afraid to speak up." She looked directly at the camera. "Your voice matters, your truth matters, and there are people who will believe you and fight for you. Don't give up." If this story has moved you, please subscribe and share it. Survivors need to know they're not alone, that justice is possible, and that their stories have power. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Tom Riley was sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by 5 years probation. He was also ordered to pay restitution to his victims and banned from working in hospitality management. It wasn't everything Lila had hoped for, but it was something. It was accountability. And it sent a message. Harassment has consequences. 6 months after the trial, Lila stood in a university auditorium, her hands shaking as she looked out at 200 students. She'd been invited to speak at a symposium on workplace safety and harassment prevention. The university had offered to pay her. She'd accepted, not because she needed the money, but because it felt important to own her expertise, to be valued for her experience and insights. "My name is Lila Dawson," she began, "and 2 years ago, I was a waitress being harassed by my manager. I was terrified, broke, and convinced that speaking up would only make things worse." She told her story, not as a victim but as a survivor, someone who'd found her voice and used it. "I was lucky," she said. "I had someone with power who chose to use it to help me. But not everyone has that. So we need to change the systems that allow harassment to thrive." She outlined practical steps: better reporting mechanisms, protection for whistleblowers, accountability for HR departments that ignore complaints. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Afterward, a line of students waited to talk to her, young women sharing their own stories, asking for advice, thanking her for her courage. One girl, barely 20, said quietly, "My boss touches me sometimes. Nothing major, just uncomfortable. I've been afraid to say anything." Lila took her hands. "Document it every time. Date, time, what happened, any witnesses, then report it. And if your company doesn't take it seriously, there are organizations that will help you. You don't have to fight alone." The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for showing me it's possible." That night, Lila came home to find Evan and Jason in the kitchen, attempting to make dinner. The kitchen was a disaster, flour everywhere, something burning in the oven. But they were laughing, and the house felt warm and alive. "What are you two doing?" "Making lasagna," Evan said proudly, "or attempting to." "It's going to be terrible," Jason added cheerfully. "But we tried." Lila laughed, kissing Evan and ruffling Jason's hair. "Let me help before you burn the house down." Together they salvaged dinner, sat around the table eating slightly burnt lasagna and talking about their days. Jason shared about his robotics competition. Evan talked about a new sustainable housing project, and Lila told them about the speech, the students, the young woman who'd been afraid to speak up. "You're changing lives," Evan said softly. "We're changing lives," Lila corrected. "All of us. By showing up, being honest, and refusing to accept that abuse is just part of life." A year after moving in together, Evan took Lila back to the Rosemont Grand Hotel. Not to work. To the rooftop restaurant where they'd had their first official date. Lila wore a dress Evan had bought her, not because she needed him to, but because he'd seen it and thought of her. They sat at a table overlooking the city, the lights twinkling like stars. "Do you remember our first dinner here?" Evan asked. "I remember being terrified, convinced I didn't belong." "And now?" Lila smiled. "Now I know I belong anywhere I choose to be." Evan reached across the table, taking her hand. "You've taught me so much, Lila. About courage, resilience, what really matters. Before I met you, I measured success in dollars and deals. Now I measure it in moments like this." He stood, came around the table, and knelt beside her chair. Lila's heart stopped. "I know we said we'd wait, take our time, but I've realized something. I don't want to wait anymore. Not because I'm rushing, but because I'm certain." He pulled out a small velvet box. "Lila Dawson, you're the strongest, kindest, most extraordinary person I've ever met. You've made me want to be better, to use my privilege and power for good, to build a life that matters." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Lila's face. "Yes. Yes, absolutely yes." Evan slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her as the restaurant erupted in applause. When they pulled apart, both were laughing through tears. "I love you," Lila said. "I love you too. Always." They were married 6 months later in the backyard of their home. Not a lavish affair, just close friends, family, and the people who'd walked beside them through the darkness. Jason walked Lila down the aisle, crying even though he pretended not to. Catherine Wells attended, beaming with pride at how far Lila had come. Jennifer and the other women who testified against Tom came, celebrating not just a wedding but a victory. Gerald, Evan's driver, served as best man, the friend who'd been there from the beginning. And when Evan and Lila exchanged vows, they promised not just to love each other, but to keep fighting for people who needed help. to use their resources and platform to create change, to never forget where they'd come from or the people still struggling. "I promise to see you," Evan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Really see you every day for the rest of our lives." "I promise to let you," Lila replied, "to trust your love and believe I deserve it." 2 years later, Lila stood in a conference room at Callahan Group headquarters, but not as an assistant or coordinator, as the director of the Callahan Foundation's Workplace Safety Initiative, a program she'd created, one that provided legal support, counseling, and job placement for people escaping abusive work environments. In 2 years, they'd helped over 300 people, funded policy changes in 12 states, trained 5,000 HR professionals on recognizing and addressing harassment, and partnered with universities to educate the next generation. Lila looked around the table at her team, lawyers, advocates, survivors who'd become activists. "All right, let's talk about the California expansion." After the meeting, she walked to Evan's office, not because she had to, but because she wanted to share lunch with him like they did every Wednesday. He looked up from his laptop and smiled. That smile still made her heart skip. "How was the meeting?" "Good. We're expanding to California, setting up partnerships with 3 major advocacy groups and piloting a program at 10 hotel chains." Evan stood, crossing to her. "You're incredible, you know that?" "I have good support," Lila said, wrapping her arms around him. "No, you have passion and vision. I just write the checks." "You do more than that." He kissed her forehead. "We make a good team. The best." They ate lunch together, sandwiches from the deli down the street, not catered expensive meals, and talked about everything and nothing. Jason's acceptance to MIT on a full engineering scholarship, the house renovations they were planning, the vacation they wanted to take, ordinary things, beautiful things, the kind of moments Lila had once thought were reserved for other people, people who hadn't struggled, people who belonged. But she'd learned something important. Everyone belonged. Everyone deserved safety, respect, and love. It wasn't about money or status or being perfect. It was about being human and fighting for a world where everyone got treated that way. That evening, Lila returned home to find Jason packing. He was leaving for MIT in 2 weeks, their baby brother, heading off to college. "You okay?" she asked, sitting on his bed. Jason looked up, trying to hide the fact that he'd been crying. "Yeah, just weird, you know, leaving. You're going to do amazing things. I know, but I'm going to miss you, and Evan, and this." He gestured around the room, the home they'd built together. "We're going to miss you too, but Jason, this is what we worked for. You getting to chase your dreams without worrying about money or survival." "I know. I just wish Mom and Dad could see it." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "They can. Somehow I think they can, and they're so proud of you." Jason hugged his sister tightly. "Thank you for everything, for raising me, for never giving up, for showing me what strength looks like. You showed me what it looks like to keep hoping even when things seem impossible." They sat together, holding on to this moment before everything changed again. The night before Jason left for college, they had a family dinner, just the 3 of them. Evan made his now famous, terrible lasagna. Jason complained about it while eating 3 servings. Lila laughed until she cried. After dinner, Evan stood and cleared his throat. "I have something for you, Jason." He handed the teenager an envelope. Jason opened it, his eyes widening. This is a college fund, a full college fund, for all 4 years plus graduate school if you want it." Jason looked up, stunned. "Evan, I have scholarships." "I know, and those cover tuition. This is for everything else. Books, housing, food, the occasional pizza when you're stressed about exams. So you never have to worry about money. You can just focus on learning." Jason's voice cracked. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll visit during Thanksgiving," Evan replied with a smile, "and that you'll call your sister at least once a week because she's going to worry constantly." Jason laughed through tears and hugged Evan. "Thank you for everything." for loving my sister, for being family. Thank you for trusting me with both of you." Lila watched them, her heart so full, it ached. This right here, was everything she'd fought for. Her brother safe, supported, heading toward a bright future. A partner who loved them both without conditions. A life built on respect, trust, and genuine care. 6 months after Jason left for college, Lila discovered she was pregnant. She and Evan had been talking about children, but this was sooner than planned. Lila stared at the positive pregnancy test, emotions swirling. Joy, fear, wonder. When she told Evan, he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying. "We're having a baby," he kept repeating, like he couldn't quite believe it. "We're having a baby," Lila confirmed. That night, they lay in bed, Evan's hand on her still flat stomach. "Are you scared?" he asked. Terrified, but also excited. This baby will grow up knowing they're wanted, loved, safe. They'll grow up knowing their mother is a force of nature who changed the world. And their father is a good man who uses his power to protect people. Evan kissed her gently. They'll grow up with everything we didn't have. Stability, security, parents who love each other. And an uncle who's going to spoil them rotten. They'd already called Jason. He'd screamed so loud they had to hold the phone away from their ears. "I'm going to be an uncle. I'm going to teach them about robots and how to beat video games and—" "Wait, do I have to change diapers?" "Absolutely," Lila had said, laughing. "Okay, I can do that. For my niece or nephew, I can do anything." 8 months later, Lila held their daughter for the first time. Grace Eleanor Callahan, named after Evan's mother and Lila's. 2 women who'd struggled but loved fiercely. 2 women who deserved to be remembered. Evan stood beside the hospital bed, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his wife and daughter. "She's perfect." "She is." Jason arrived hours later, having driven straight from MIT despite having midterms. He held his niece carefully, his teenage bravado completely gone. "Hi, Gracie. I'm your Uncle Jason, and I'm going to teach you everything, including how to stand up to anyone who tries to mess with you." Lila smiled. She's going to have the best uncle. "Damn right she is." "Language," Evan said automatically. "The baby can't understand me yet. Start practicing now." They bickered good-naturedly while Lila watched, her heart overflowing. This was her family, built from broken pieces, stronger because of what they'd survived, and proof that sometimes the worst moments lead to the most beautiful transformations. 5 years later, Lila stood on a stage at a national conference on workplace harassment prevention. She was the keynote speaker now, an expert whose story and work had inspired policy changes across the country. The Callahan Foundation's Workplace Safety Initiative had helped over 2,000 people, changed laws in 30 states, created a national hotline for harassment victims, and partnered with corporations to implement real, meaningful protection for employees. But more than the numbers, Lila had received thousands of letters from people who'd found the courage to speak up, who'd escaped abusive situations, who'd rebuilt their lives. Each letter reminded her why this work mattered. As she looked out at the crowd, advocates, survivors, corporate leaders, journalists, Lila felt a sense of purpose she'd never imagined possible. 10 years ago, she began, I was invisible, a waitress being harassed by her manager, too afraid to speak up, too broke to leave, too convinced that this was just how life worked for people like me. She paused. But someone saw me. Someone with power chose to use it to protect me instead of ignore me. And that one moment of intervention changed everything. I'm not here to say everyone needs a billionaire to rescue them. I'm here to say we all need to be that person for someone else. Whatever power we have, whether it's wealth, position, platform, or just the courage to speak up, we need to use it. Because invisible people aren't actually invisible. They're just being ignored. And when we choose to see them, to believe them, to fight for them, we change lives. Lila's voice strengthened. So I challenge you, every person in this room, to be the intervention someone needs, to stand up when you see injustice, to use whatever privilege and power you have to protect people who can't protect themselves. That's how we change the world, not with grand gestures, but with consistent, courageous choices to see people and fight for them. The applause was deafening. Afterward, a young woman approached Lila. She looked like Lila had 10 years ago, scared, exhausted, desperate. "I'm being harassed at work," she whispered. "I don't know what to do." Lila took her hands. "You just took the first step by telling someone. Now let's take the next one together." She handed the woman a card for the Foundation's hotline. "Call them. They'll connect you with free legal help, counseling, and a safe place to stay if you need it. You're not alone." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for speaking up, for making this possible. Thank you for being brave enough to reach out." That night, Lila came home to chaos. Grace, now 5, was covered in paint. Evan was attempting to cook dinner while simultaneously helping her with an art project. Jason, home for the weekend from his engineering job in Boston, was on the floor building blocks with Grace while she babbled about her day. "Mama!" Grace shrieked, running to Lila with paint-covered hands. Lila scooped her up, not caring about her expensive conference outfit. "Hi, baby. Did you have a good day? Uncle Jason taught me to build a robot, and Daddy made mac and cheese, but it's yucky." "It's not yucky," Evan protested. "It's experimental." "It's definitely yucky," Jason confirmed. Lila laughed, kissing Evan hello and joining the chaos. This was everything, the messy, imperfect, beautiful reality of a life built on love. After Grace was in bed, Lila and Evan sat on their back porch, watching the stars. "Do you ever think about where we'd be if that night hadn't happened?" Lila asked. "Sometimes, but not with regret. With gratitude that it did. I used to be so angry that I needed rescuing, like it made me weak. And now? Now I know that accepting help isn't weakness, and offering it isn't about power. It's about recognizing our shared humanity." Evan pulled her close. "You've taught me that, along with about 1,000 other things." "Like what?" "Like how to make a home, not just a house. Like what actually matters. Like how to be brave even when you're terrified." Lila rested her head on his shoulder. "We've come a long way from that hallway." "We have, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Even the terrible lasagna and paint disasters, especially those." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching the night sky. And Lila thought about the scared 23-year-old she'd been, the girl who thought she had to be invisible to survive, who believed she didn't deserve good things, who couldn't imagine a future beyond just getting through each day. She wished she could go back and tell that girl, "You're going to make it. You're going to find your voice. You're going to build something beautiful. And you're going to help other people do the same. Hold on, just a little longer. The best is yet to come." If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, share it, and leave a comment. Let's create a world where no one has to suffer in silence. Where power is used to protect, not exploit. Where everyone, regardless of their job, their bank account, or their background, is treated with dignity and respect. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep believing in the power of kindness, the importance of speaking up, and the truth that love can heal even the deepest wounds. Be the person who sees, who believes, who stands up. Because you never know whose life you might change.